And Nick is co-founder and CEO of IndoGenius. And you'll see from his outfit to his attitude, he really understands India and where India is going. And the title of his talk is also provocative: Why the AI Century is Actually Indian. And so he's going to do this. As soon as he's set, we will get going. Nick Booker, IndoGenius, look at that. Oh, that's an amazing outfit over there. But you're wearing something special now as well. Are you ready to go?
I'm ready.
All right.
Thank you.
Make some noise, everybody. Nick Booker.
Thank you so much, Sri. Thank you so much, Emma, Manjula, and the whole team. Sri as well. Multiple Sris. We're abundance of shining wealth. Fantastic. So I am incredibly lucky to be with you all. I've been here for a few days. So we've had this galaxy of people, speakers, and wonderful guests, delegates at the Indiaspora Summit, and now here with you. So I'm going to talk to you about, can we show the slides, please? The laptop should be connected. There we go. I can see it there. Is there? Awesome. Okay, who can recognize the image behind me? There. Mark, how many of you, hands up if you were there? Oh, wow. Fantastic. Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to come back to Mahakum in a moment. But first of all, why am I here? Why am I here in this room? Why am I here in Bengaluru? Why am I here in Karnataka? Why am I here in India in 2026? Because in 2006, I recognized that there were two super trends of the 21st century. The first is accelerating technology, and of course we now associate that with the two letters AI. And the second is re-emerging Indian civilization. The fact that what was the world's largest economy, what was the civilization that has inspired more people on Earth than any other civilization, is re-emerging into this world of accelerating technology. And I can now say 19 years later, I came here in 2007, in 19 years later, that we are living in what I believe is the first Indian decade of the Indian century. I do not believe there is any doubt we are living in the Indian century. It's just a question of when people realize and when India is able to achieve its full potential. It could be in the 2030s or 2040s, but it will certainly be in the 2050s or 60s and by 2070. Now, this is a group, this is what I do. So this is a group of students from New Zealand that I took around the whole of India for 6 weeks in a bus, along with my wife and my daughter. You can see at the front there. And next to us is the High Commissioner of New Zealand and the Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation for New Zealand, Minister Reti. And our students there are on the final couple of days of a 6-week trip. And on that trip, I taught each of them, non-technical, lawyers, policy, business students, design students, I taught each and every one of them how to build fully functional mobile apps inspired by their time in India. We visited IITs, we visited NGOs, corporate startups, and each of them came up with an absolutely fantastic and, crucially, fully functional mobile app. That is the impact of the AI revolution in practice. And here they are at IIT Delhi. And the IIT students were really quite impressed as well, because they suddenly saw what these students have been able to do on their mobile phones. Now, I do that challenge because this device that I'm holding in my hand to control the presentation, this mobile phone, is something that is increasingly, obviously, available, a smartphone, to many hundreds of millions and soon 1 billion Indians, which means 1 billion Indians have the ability to do what I did, to do what our 20 students and my daughter, 10-year-old daughter. Now, that culmination of the program took me to the AI for Impact Summit. And I had to show this, A, because it's got a lot of key figures from the world of AI, but there you can see, top left, MR and I. So I first reached out to MR in 2015, or maybe even 2014. So over 12 years ago, knowing of his incredible reputation and the work that he does with the diaspora. And there we are together, along with some incredible luminaries who I will be referring back to in the course of this presentation. I'm going to actually skip through the next little bit quite quickly because I want to focus on the civilizational angle. We're at the end of a long day, and for some of us, several days of talks, where we've been hearing from business leaders, from technologists about this. But here's just a quick summary of why I think India has a winning formula. It's the fact that the AI is enabling a multiplication of engineering output. The fact that AI both lifts the floor, enabling less capable to do better, but also raises the ceiling, enables the best to do extraordinary things. India benefits disproportionately because the impact of AI on education, on healthcare, on finance, on language translation, huge impact, lots and lots of use cases. And I think that India is already building for itself, but also for the world through global capability centers and, of course, through the diaspora. So the three big reasons, and I've got a whole 2 hours that I could talk about everything on there, including graphs and stats. But here's the three elements of why the AI future is actually Indian. The first one is India, the country. So where we are right now. So 1.5 billion people going up to 1.7 billion people. So the number of users, the number of datas, the number of beneficiaries of the deployment of AI is greater in India than anywhere else. And that's why AI leaders come here to get users, to get use cases, to get problems to solve. Secondly, India as a people. So India will have as many graduates of working age as China and America combined by about 2050, maybe 2060. So we are seeing a wall of talent due to demography that is going to get access to these AI-empowered education as well as traditional education. And that is the workforce of the future. So if you still believe, and I know this is an assumption that some people challenge, that humans are required, that humans need to be in the loop, then India has an advantage through the people. And those people are not just us in this room, those of us who live in India, but it's the diaspora as well, which is why the Indiaspora is such a fantastic initiative, because it's the mycelium of the diaspora network across business, finance, politics, not just technology, hospitals, education in America, the National Health Service in Britain, in startups all over the world, in corporate boardrooms, in the White House. All of that Indian diaspora network are going to be the drivers of AI. So India the country, India the people. But also, and this is what I want to talk about for my remaining time, is India the civilization. Because I believe that we have only got the AI that we have today because of contributions and ideas that emanated out of India over the last several thousand years. Okay, on the way to the Kumbh Mela, that's me in third AC on a train. I've made 6 trips to the Kumbh, or 3 trips, 6 train journeys. And on several of those train journeys, I built mobile apps on my phone. I did this one on a laptop to make it easier to see what's going on here. But here's an app that I built to help me translate Sanskrit into English, and then be able to, by taking photos and uploading documents, and then be able to look at the etymology and meaning of words. And I will just show you. Oh, does the volume work? We've got more. Can you try the volume on this video, please? Can you try the volume?
With the mystical Ma Saraswati. This is the most central I've ever...
Okay, whoa.
I am right at the very heart of the Triveni Sangam, on the channel where Ma Ganga and Ma Yamuna meet with the mystical Ma Saraswati. This is the most central I've ever been in the 6 snans that I've taken here at the Sangam, this Mahakumbh Mela. It's Maghi Purnima, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else in the world.
So incredibly lucky to have 5 of the 6 ice nuns and another one as well. Okay, so some of you got a little glimpse of the next slides because I just skipped ahead. But do you know what this is? Samudra Manthan. Okay, fantastic. So this is Samudra Manthan at Bangkok Airport. Have any of you seen it at Bangkok Airport? I actually went there for the first time last week. Amazing, all of the connections with India. Quite a few people in the room. So the Samudra Manthan in Bangkok Airport. Now, all of you will have heard the story of Samudra Manthan at some time, I'm guessing. Put your hands up, please, do me a favor. Put your hands up if you've heard. Look at that, amazing. Now, when we were at the AI for Impact Summit, similarly, we would have had lots of people raising their hands because we were in India. But if we were in the Bay Area, now Satya Nadella and Sundar Pichai and a few others will have raised their hands. But a lot of European ancestry and Chinese ancestry would have blanked. Yeah? I didn't know this story until I came to India. And yet, I believe that the Samudra Manthan is the best analogy for AI. And it is the most powerful way for us to understand some of the implications of AI and start thinking of it in different ways. So if you think of the story, I'm going to do it very quickly, but we're talking about the churning of the ocean between the forces of light, the suras, and the forces of darkness, the asuras. So you have the fact that that Vishnu has recognized, at the top there, has recognized that you need to get both of their energies together to churn the ocean. Now think of what that means in psychological terms. It means people who have good intent and people who perhaps have bad intent. So think of the organizations in Silicon Valley. Some people are trying to make money for the sake of making money. Some people want power for themselves. Some people have egos. Some people want to do ill. And those people are joining forces or being recruited or being partnered with those who want to make the world a better place, to create Amrit, to create health for all, to create wealth, prosperity, to solve problems. So I'm not going to name names here, but think of organizations, and I really mean that, but because you could value judgments, these are opinions that you could put on either side. But think of organizations that are improving healthcare, but also think of people that are investing in AI. Think of the Department of War, as it's now known, in the Pentagon. Think of the defense industry. Think of Palantir. Now, are they forces of light that are protecting us by using AI, or darkness? Are they looking to use it for aggression, or both? And the answer probably is, with all of us, both. The line of good and evil lines with all of us, which is what the psychology of the story is all about, and the mythology and the importance of these stories and what they teach us. Okay, so what comes out of the churning of the ocean? Well, the first thing that comes out is halahal, poison. So think of what comes out of the AI models when they've had their first training round. All kinds of ills. So you have teams in OpenAI and Anthropic using different approaches for value alignment, for constitutional AI, in order to, like Shiva, drink the poison so that it doesn't get released and do harm to the rest of us. Yeah? You've got wealth, Shri, Lakshmi, coming out. Prosperity, money, health, Dhanvantari, doctors, immortality, powers, defense, weapons. So all of these things that we are trying to create using AI have got connections with this incredibly powerful story and set of analogies that we could draw. So who is Shiva? Who's going to drink the poison? Who's Parvati? Who's going to save Shiva, giving him the Nilkant, the blue throat? Who's going to be Mohini and distract the Asuras at the last minute from snatching away the Amrit, the elixir of immortality? Okay? So we can use these stories and the imagery and the insights to learn more about us and the world that we live in. And yet, how many of you have heard of the story of Pandora's box? Yeah? Pretty much all of you. So Pandora's box is almost universal. It's been used by the Chinese ambassador here on the right. It's used in Silicon Valley, used at World Economic Forum. So here's a really interesting thing. We've got a Western Greek civilizational metaphor that all of us, whether we are British, American, Chinese, or Indian, are aware of, and it's actually very simplistic compared to the richness of the Samudra Manthan story, which is only known really to those people who are born with a grandmother in India who can pass on that knowledge, or someone like myself who, out of curiosity, has come across it. So there's an availability of metaphors that can help us make sense of the world coming out of the Indian tradition, which are very powerful and very useful. Now, many of you would recognize this scene from a village, or perhaps even a grandmother. How do you... Oh, there's some music at least. Okay. That is the Samudra Manthan. So you see Vasuki being pulled around in order to churn the milk. So buttermilk is made in this way. That's obviously where the Samudra Manthan is coming from. But something else is also made using the same technique. Does anyone know what's going on there? Fire, Agni, so Agni Manthan. So the churning of milk, the churning of fire. And it's actually that churning of fire, of Agni, which is the beginning of the emergence of a worldview which I genuinely believe helps us understand Silicon Valley today and actually leads us to Silicon Valley. So I've just put a few of these milestones on that journey, and I'm going to talk about some of them in more detail. So an algorithmic way of thinking, that's what's going on in the Vedic rituals, procedures, steps. You need to use geometry in order to build the altars. You need to use mathematics in order to be able to predict the movement of the stars, astronomy, Jyotish. The Sulba Sutras, we've got the culmination of this work. Generative grammar in the mantras and in Panini's interpretation of Sanskrit language and his work. Binary combinatorics. So we've got a lot of ideas here which are really giving birth to a mathematical view of reality which only reached Europe in the 12th century. So computational astronomy of Aryabhatta and Brahmagupta comes into England and to Europe in the 12th century. And it revolutionizes the way Europeans see the world. And the Europeans start mathematizing reality, which gives birth, over the subsequent centuries, to the modern scientific worldview. And I could go into more detail on the difference between axiomatic reasoning and computational positivism. Narasimha Rodham, a great scholar from ISC down in Bangalore, has worked on that. Quantum era, early 20th century, Heisenberg, Bohr, Schrödinger, obsessed with Indian philosophy, describing it in their writings, not as a precursor of quantum knowledge, but as a way of understanding reality that was in accordance with their own beliefs. And then contemporary AI leadership, the diaspora. So H1Bs, global capability centers, captive centers, people in Silicon Valley, people in Bangalore, that are shaping the companies and the institutions. So I want to now take you from the first to the last yajna. So what is a yajna? Yajna is an offering, and hopefully we are going to get some sound on this.
The ritual patron or sacrificer, with the help of Agni and Vedic mantras, asks the gods for strength, wealth, children, and immortality. His measurements give a unit of length which determines the size of his altars and sacred enclosure. This is the origin of geometry in India.
Okay, I'm going to just repeat what was said there. So essentially, when a formal Vedic ritual was performed, and this goes back several thousands of years, the yajman's measurements were taken, and the entire ritual is based in proportion to them. Now, in order to do that, you actually need to understand geometry. And you are creating, in effect, an analog twin, not a digital twin, which is what we're now doing, because we now have the resources available to do it, but an analog twin. So the building these great rituals involved creating
a new world worthy of the gods.
I think we'll... So you can see the measuring out. So creating virtual representations, abstract representations of the yajman, of the offerer, the user, the patron, and of, in fact, the universe itself, and remembering, as in bringing back together Prajapati.
Prajapati created the world through his own dismemberment. His pieces became parts of the universe. In the construction of the altar,
you can imagine the geometry and the maths required to do this, the sophistication. So how do you create a circle, a square, and a crescent the same size? That's key to making the altars. How do you do it all in proportion? Now, here's something which I always like to show. This is a Pravagya ceremony where ghee is being offered into a fire. Now, have any of you seen this? It's absolutely extraordinary, isn't it? That's just ghee in a clay pot being offered into fire. Okay, so that was one of the key things. Now, here is what is a diagram of what a grand, shorter ritual, Agni Chana, piling up of Agni, would have looked like. And I'm going to show you how this, the Havan that we know, which is just one of those fires, is related to this. So how is the idea of offering something of value into a virtual abstract representation of reality in order to manipulate it to confer benefits upon the users and the patrons and the community. That's the Silicon Valley vision. It's also the Vedic vision. And here are the three fires, Gahapatya, Dakshinagni, Ahavanya. So the word Havan, which for Homer, which we all are more familiar with, comes from only one of the three fires. The householder, the fire that goes to the gods, and then the Dakshinagni is the one for the ancestors and the peers. Now, the Vedi is where all the equipment was put. That's just part of it, because then that's all for the householder, then it goes to the gods, and then it goes to this virtual representation of reality and goes up to the heavens. This is several thousand years old. I've visited these so that you can still see a Sayana Chitti. There was one discovered in Koshambi near Prayagraj. There's another one you can visit near Dehradun, and there's even one up in Uttarakhand, Parola, a couple of thousand years old. You can see the falcons, and also in Kerala and Andhra Pradesh. Still to this day, every few years, it costs several crores to do these rituals. Now, there were four kinds of priests involved. Hotris were in charge of the Rig Veda. So the four Vedas were associated with four priests. Hotri, Advaryo in charge of the Yajurveda, and then you had the Ugatri, the Samaveda, and finally the Brahman, who's the name that we all know and associate with priests, was only really associated with the Atharva Veda, but that was really everything. Now, there are Silicon Valley parallels here. So the Rig Veda is mantra. It's language being used to manipulate reality, software. The Advaryu and the Yajurveda is all about hardware. It's all about building the altars. It's about building the instruments. It's how do you create these representations? How do you use maths, geometry in order to do it? The Udgatri, the Samaveda, is singing versions of the Rig Veda mantras in order to encourage the gods and goddesses to come to the feast, to come to the ritual. So you want your yagya to be popular. You want people to come. You want like an Indian wedding to this day, like an Indiaspora conference. You're promoting your feast to encourage people to come. There will be drinks and snacks served shortly. That's what's going on today. It's what's going on here at these feasts. And that is like the public relations, the government relations, the investor relations, which I've sort of summarized in one word as marketing. So it's, I mean, and obviously I'm talking about a parallel, not the sacred nature of the actual yagyas themselves, but what's the Silicon Valley parallel? And then finally, the Brahman is the Atharva Veda, so it's oversight. So it's almost like regulator. It's not really CEO. It's more overseeing the whole thing, making sure that if anything goes wrong, intervening to ensure that it works well. Okay, so here are some more parallels, which I'm not going to dwell on in detail, but I just want to quickly show you. So Agni is like the energy, it's the electricity, it's photons, qubits, it's the means of transmutation of the data into something else. Agni China are the hyperscalers, the data centers, the chips, the silicon. Advaryus are the engineers who are building that. The Hotris are the coders, the engineers. The Ugatris, CEOs, communicators, Sam Altman. Brahmans, philosophers, ethicists, regulators, potentially what Rishi Sunak may be trying to position himself as. I don't know. Okay, now here is showing you the way this works today. So each of us has in our hand a mobile phone or an iPad or a laptop. These personal devices are like the householder's fire. We are offering data into them all the time. Where are you? Your location. What are you thinking? What are you listening to? Your messages, your photographs. All of that is valuable data that you as an individual, we are offering through these altars that we hold in our hands, these black screens, these phones, and it's turned into electricity and transmitted across to servers. Now, the apps that we use that collect that data that we're offering are like the initial Havan process, so the Facebooks, the YouTubes, the WhatsApps, and so on. But that is only the beginning, because what is now happening in the last few years is the Mahavedi is being built. So this is when Google, Gemini, when OpenAI, Anthropic, Oracle, Microsoft, AWS, where they're collecting as much data as they can in order to make models of reality, digital twins of us, of businesses, of the world itself, of roads, Elon Musk, and they combine those together. Okay, So Indian ideas have revolutionized European science, giving birth to the modern world. They did it through the 12th century mathematization of science. You can see here Indian Brahmi script-style numbers in a 12th century European text. Doesn't that look like a kundli? That's an astrological chart of King Stephen in England in the 12th century, coming through the Islamic world, but clearly from India. Here is an example of Pythagoras on the right, very upset with his abacus calculator, and Boethius on the left, very happy with his Indian numerals, place value decimals, showing the power of Indian numerals and Indian mathematization. So how can AI save us from AI? How can ancient India save us from artificial intelligence? Well, I came up with this as a formula, that the probability that an intelligent system converges on a worldview that is benevolent, with reverence for living creatures and consciousness, increases with the quantity, coherence, and dharmic quality of its data. We can talk about that more later. But one of the challenges is that tens of millions of Indian texts have remained undigitized, uncatalogued, and therefore inaccessible. Now, if you only trained a model on that data set, it would have a dharmic worldview. If you train it on Reddit and YouTube and Snapchat, it will have a worldview more reflective of contemporary values. So that's the challenge there, and that's me with some interesting documents I was digitizing. Okay, so I also mentioned that Indians are influencing the world. So Ashish Vaswani, Nikki Palmer, Ranchi, Bits Ranchi, and Nikki Palmer self-taught basically out of Pune. So they were key authors of the paper that changed the world 10 years ago. This Attention is All You Need paper, mostly out of Google engineers. But look at their backgrounds. It's not Bits Pilani, it's Ranchi. It's not IIT Mumbai, it's self-taught in Pune. That's the potential at the raising the ceiling end of what AI is enabling for Indians. And of course, we have our flagship Indiaspora stars, Satya, Sundar. But have you seen what Sam Altman said when he tweeted a few years ago, "What true thing do you believe that few people agree with you on?" Does anyone know what he says to this? He asked this question and he replied to it. Yes, I think someone said it. He replied, absolute equivalence of Brahman and Atman. And here he is in an interview with Lex Fridman, only 30 seconds clip. Volume, please.
I'm certainly willing to believe that consciousness is somehow the fundamental substrate and we're all just in the dream or the simulation or whatever. Yeah. I think it's interesting how much sort of the Silicon Valley religion of the simulation has gotten close to like Brahman and how little space there is between them.
Did you hear that?
But from these...
How close the Silicon Valley religion and idea is to the idea of Brahman, the idea of consciousness and being a substrate. So maybe we can add Sam in there. So Satya, Sam, Sundar. So Indian worldviews implying not just Indians, but people who are adopting Indians. And then a dharmic AI joke, maybe the first time you've ever heard one. Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. Oh, I'll go back so you can see that again. There we go. Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. Okay? So I leave you with my final hope, aspiration, and actually my belief that an AI future that is actually Indian must and can be grounded in truth, life-giving and auspicious, beautiful and meaningful.
Whoa.
Thank you very much, Emma. Thank you, Indiaspora.
Well done, Nick. Nick, well done.
Thank you.
Emma promised how great you'd be.
Thank you.
So tell us where we can find you and where we can learn more.
Well,
you'll be at the bar.
I will certainly be here, and you can find me online, mostly on Instagram and YouTube. And Emma always encourages me to get onto LinkedIn. You're so wonderful on LinkedIn.
You're not on LinkedIn. That's amazing.
I am, but I don't post it.
You don't
Anyway,
use it.
I will now.
All right.
Thank you very much, everybody.
IndoGenius, everybody.
Thank you so much.